G'day and welcome back. Today's episode I'm going to talk about Snapseed image sharpening, how you can sharpen those photos using their free app. There's a few tools inside there and I'm going to show you the most common ones and how you use them, as well as a couple of extra tips and techniques to do not just global sharpening but area specific sharpening, which is really cool. Now this is actually a video lesson inside the Blurry to Tack Sharp Photos 4-step system course. And I just wanted to bring this to you because it's something that we can all benefit from straight away with using the free app. And so in there I'll talk about why we're using those tools, why some tools are better than others. So without further ado, play the intro and get straight into it. So the big question is this: how do smartphone photo enthusiasts like us become that creative and confident photographer we desire and deserve to be, creating those beautiful, impactful photos? This podcast will give you the answers. I'm Mike and welcome to the Smartphone Photography Club. Welcome back. In this lesson I'm going to show you Snapseed, one of my favorite go-to apps that you're probably already familiar with previous experience. You've probably already got this app on your phone and playing around with it, that sort of thing. What you're going to learn is my favorite go-to sharpening tools inside here. Snapseed is great because it does whole image sharpening as well as area specific sharpening. And there's a couple of really cool tips and techniques and hidden things inside there that I want to show you as well. Why do we do this? Why do we use this app? Because it's as part of your normal workflow. If you're already inside Snapseed and using it, then it's great to actually incorporate sharpening inside that workflow and your process as you're going. So if you're familiar with Snapseed and using it, it doesn't make sense for you to then go out to something else. So I want to show you what you're already using, the how-to, the tactics, the tools. First of all, I'm going to go in there and show you some settings and navigation and how to actually make full use of this app. So I'll bring this up now and I'll leave myself in the corner there so I can still talk to you. Okay, firstly I want to go into the settings, which is the 3 dots up the top there, which is the menu overflow, settings. Go into there and you'll see down the bottom here, format and quality. Okay. By default, it actually, when you install this app, and you may have been using this app for a long time and not realize this, it actually saves your images as a JPEG 95%. So I like to change it to either JPEG 100% or PNG. If you share a lot of your photos on social media like I do, PNG is fantastic because it has a lossless compression, which means, forgive the jargon, what that means is it retains as much data as it can in the photo. It does increase the file size, but that's okay because when you share things on social media, they'll actually go on and compress the image and make it smaller size, so you lose detail. So PNG, JPEG is more widely accepted. So if you want to transfer your photo into other apps or share it, someone wants to upload it onto a website or something like that, PNG might be a bit problematic. But for me, with all my apps that I use, PNG is cross-platform, works for everything for me. So that's why I have that. So I just wanted to show you that. So we tick on there. So that's done. Finish with that one. First tool I want to show you is Tonal Contrast. Okay, so we go into the pencil. Depending on which way you orientate the phone, it'll either be a pencil icon, or if you flip it around, it actually turns the pencil into the word tools. Okay, so depending on what phone you've got, little slight differences between Android and an iPhone, but that's the way we go. Okay, pencil, tonal contrast. Okay, and tonal contrast, and we can tap down the bottom there. We can go to adjust. Okay. And we've got high tones, mid tones, low tones. So high tones are the bright areas inside the image. Mid, they're kind of the middle of the range between bright and dark. And then you've got your low tones. Protect highlight shadows. I'll get to that in a moment. Okay. Now when you use this, it actually by default applies these settings. And more often than not, they're bang on. They're really good. Now, I know it's one of those things, I'd love to give you all the settings for every app, every image, but they're all slightly different intention. You want a soft image, you want a grungy, sharp image, so it depends, but that has actually worked really well for bringing up some fine details. Okay, navigation, pinch with 2 fingers. We can pinch in and out with our 2 fingers. Once we've pinched in with our 2 fingers on the screen, we can move around the image. It's great whenever you're doing any sort of sharpening to zoom in like that. Okay, up the top there, up the top right corner, we have a before and after, so you can hold that down and you can see the difference there already. Look at that. So there's the before, there's the after. One thing whenever you're doing sharpening, as we've discussed, just check, make sure that it's not changing the colors as well. But this one, Tonal Contrast, does a fantastic job. Okay, all right. Now, each one, high tones. So what you do is swipe up with your finger. Once you land on high tones, left and right across the top there, you'll see a bar indicating your strength of your adjustment, and then you'll see the number as well, high tones plus 68, and we go back and forth. Okay, zooming in, so the high tones will be the white area. Okay, so we're giving that a good crunch. Okay, now I'm not sure what size screen you've got, so I'm going to emphasize or exaggerate this a little bit so that you can actually see a difference, hopefully, just looking at the white areas around the outside there. Okay, so what this does, the protect highlights, this is one that it actually took me a little while to work out because there's no information out there on the internet telling you what this means. Protect highlights basically means that we touched on briefly, when you sharpen something, it can change the colors. It can also change the brightness of an area. So if we do the highlights and we really crunch and really enhance and give that some real good sharpening in the highlights, what can happen is it can turn brighter, and it can get to a point where it becomes so bright that you actually lose detail. It actually becomes too bright, all the whites, and you lose the detail in there. So what that protect highlights does is it'll actually, if you look at the whites, when we go and apply that, it'll actually, oh, we can't really see that because it's not very bright, but it will actually go and dull off the white areas, the really bright areas. So it's a way of, you can add lots of detail and then go, oh, hang on, we love the detail, but we've gone too bright, so you can bring that back. And same with the shadows, the low tones and protect shadows. To be honest, I never use the protect shadows. I never really use the low tones, which is the enhancing the details in the shadows, because that's where the noise lives and the artifacts lives in the shadows and the dark areas. So I don't like to really try and bring out more detail there. I just leave that there. Midtones, that adds real depth to your image. The midtones is just fantastic. It's similar to clarity in other apps. So that one's really good. So high tones, I generally leave the high tones in the default setting. If it's a really bright image, then I might know to look at the protect highlights. But midtones, that's where I'll get in there and really, let's get in here and have a look, and we give that a good crunch. Hold the screen, there's the before and there's the after. Pretty cool, isn't it? And then let's have a look at these shadow areas and look for some noise. So there's the before and there's the after. So it does a really good job of not introducing artifacts. Okay, so that's really good. Okay, just check my notes, make sure there's nothing else there that I wanted to cover. Yep. Okay, I skipped one bit there, contrast. I'm assuming that you're already familiar with the term, which you may not. So tonal contrast, we've talked about how it's selecting the bright areas, the midtones and the low tones. What tonal contrast? That's the tonal range from bright to dark. That's called the tonal range. What contrast does is contrast, for a quick definition, contrast is the difference between two things. So when we're talking about an image being really contrasty, basically that means that if you have a white piece of paper and you draw with a black pen, then that's really high contrast. If we want to make that even more contrast, add more contrast, instead of using a grey lead on white paper, then we might use a black pen, and that adds more contrast because it's darker against the brighter white. If that makes sense? When we're talking about an image for sharpening, the edges is where we're looking in the edge details. We're looking around these little bits inside the flower there, and the edge. So where the edge, the light and the dark come together to form a bit of an edge, it's visible. It's making it lighter, making it darker, so you can see there's a bigger difference between, and it gives that appearance of it being sharper. Cool? Got that? All right. Quite a difficult one to try and explain contrast, but hopefully we got that. All right. The negatives of extra contrast is skin tone. So if you've got an image with skin tones, if you portrait, most phones though do a fantastic job with people, but if you're editing, it doesn't recognize that there's actually a person. You start playing around with tonal contrast, you can actually start adding blotchiness to people's faces and bringing out wrinkles and all that sort of thing. So it's not very flattering. You can start changing the colors. So if there's people in the image, I try and stay clear of the tonal contrast. What else have we got? Okay. Oh, just a general tip there I've written down is whenever we do an edit, again, see I've gone midtones and I've gone 100% there to try and showcase what it does. What I do is I typically go to where I think it looks good, and then I'll back it off about 20% or so, just so that to avoid that over editing. Okay, excellent. All right. Yep, covered all that. Fantastic. So that is tonal contrast. Let's get into details. So this is the order that I would normally go in there and edit inside Snapseed to do sharpenings. I'll do the tonal contrast, then I'll go into details. Let's tap on details. Same again. Structure, sharpening are the two tools we've got there. Structure, basically, it looks for those areas in the image where there is evident contrast. So it looks for those lines, the edges in the image. And as you increase that, and I rarely go above 20, depending on the image. If it's a leaf, say if it's a leaf and I want to get in all that detail, then I'll really crunch it, because grungy is okay to get all those incredible details. Generally though, I would avoid going past 20. And then sharpening indiscriminately sharpens every single little dot of colors and light and dark in the whole image. So the image is basically the pixels. It's made up of millions of little dots, so it'll go and sharpen every single dot. So yeah, yes, it can be good, but then you don't want it to as well. You don't want to sharpen sky. You don't want the sky to be sharpened. Okay, so let's go in here. Let's give this a good sharpen. So let's go to 20, like I said, and then sharpen all that. Now what you'll see, and I can see it straight away, there's our before. There's our before, there's our after. So we're using this tool, we are starting to bring out, actually if I just zoom in and hold it, you'll see it. Okay, before and after. So you can see there we're starting to introduce some artifacts into there now using that. We're bringing out some incredible detail, but it is affecting those other areas as well. We've got a way of dealing with that in the noise reduction we cover later. Okay, so that's that one. Next one I want to show you is Selective Tool. So back into there, the pencil, the tools, and Selective. Now, this is one that most people don't really, unless someone shows you, you don't realize what you can actually do with this. So again, pinch and zoom, and we want to get into those real close details there. So we tap on there. All right, so we're dropping a pin. As we drop a pin, what you can do, when it's blue like that, it is actually active. So now we can put our finger on there and we can drag that, and we can drag that around. Whoop. We can drag that around, and you can see the magnifying glass. The magnifying glass zooms in so you can see, but it also, if you have a look around the edge, it shows you what color. So it shows you exactly what color pixel that you're dropping that pin on. Okay, so I want that. All right. And what you can do is most people then just go in there and go, okay, swipe up and down. Brightness, contrast, saturation, structure. We want to sharpen the structure, which is same as structure inside the details tool. So now we're using a selective tool. So the selective is more area specific. So instead of applying it to the whole image, we're dropping the pin and saying, bang, that's where I want it. Okay. We pinch and zoom. Have a look what happens here. See the red overlay? So this red overlay, based on where we drop that pin, it looks for other color that you've dropped it. It looks for other similar areas in the area. And as you zoom in and out with your fingers, it increases or decreases that threshold for surrounding pixels that are similar. And you can see there, we're just picking up on those little frongy bits. I don't know what they're called, but it's picking up just those areas and it's avoiding the white. So you can see, by doing this, we're not going to be sharpening that white. Because remember what happens when you sharpen the white, it becomes brighter and you can lose detail that we discussed earlier. So, okay, so that's pretty good. And then we can crunch that to the right. There's our before and our after. Okay, and if we want to move around the screen, over on the left there, we've got the blue triangle in the corner there, so we can move around that way. Or with 2 fingers, we need to deactivate the pin, which means just tap somewhere else away from that pin, and now we can move around with our 2 fingers. Okay, because if you do that with the pin activated, you're actually going to increase and decrease, aren't you? All right, so that's good. Let's go. Now this is what I want to show you. We can actually go into these areas. This is what's really cool about this selective. We can go in there, okay, plus we're going to drop another pin. And in this area where we've started to bring in the artifacts, we can actually go to structure and we can go negative. What do you think happens when we decrease sharpening? We're adding blur. So this is where we can go in there and we can blur these areas. Okay, so there's the before, there's the after. So adding some background blur. We can see there we're starting to take in the edge of the leaf. So pinch and zoom, we can pinch and make sure that we don't go to that leaf. Okay, deactivate the pin and let's zoom in and look at that. We've actually, that area, and you can see there the little, the gray bit going across there, that hasn't been affected. So let's go tap on there. Okay, select there, structure, zoom, and then, whoops, okay. And then have a look. Look at that. It's all smooth. We've got rid of those artifacts. Yes, we can do this in noise reduction inside Lightroom that I'll show you later. But inside Snapseed, if you like to do everything inside Snapseed, that's just so cool that you can get in there with the selective. You can go and select the area that you want to blur. Select the area where you've started to introduce some real grittiness and artifacts. You can go in there and smooth those off. Just such a cool, versatile tool. All right. So where else do we think we might add some more into these leaves here, or these petals? Okay, look at that. I mean, how cool is that? Because it's such contrast between the color of the petals in the background, it does an amazing job of what we call masking. So it does an amazing job of just choosing those. And you can go in there, I'm going to get a bit sidetracked here, but you can use saturation as well and really pump up the saturation of those areas. Yeah, just super cool. Super cool, isn't it? All right, so I'm just going to press the X there. Whenever you finish using that, go in there and use the tick so that we can accept it. Actually, I'll go in there. Let's go back in there because I started to play around a little bit more. Whoop. Okay. Go in there. Give that a good crunch. There we go. All right. Next one I want to show you is another way of, inside Snapseed, of applying details in just where you want. Okay, so what we want to go is pencil. Let's go back to details. So we've covered tonal contrast, details, selective tool. I'm going to show you one more, a bonus one. So let's go back into details. Okay, we're going to zoom in. All right, and what I want to do here, let's say for example, we want to sharpen. Let's just say we want to sharpen just the bottom edge around the petals, all right? So we're going to go in there, zoom in. Okay, see the white areas? See how we got those real white areas there? Okay, bring that back a bit, not too much. Okay, now that's applied, and press the tick. That has applied it to everything, and now we're starting to get a bit blotchy and a bit over the top. Up the top of the screen there, you've got the 2 tiles and the arrow. This is the history, the stacks, whatever you want to call it. It goes by different names, layers. Tap on there. View edits, and that's where we can bring up all the edits that we've done so far. Tap on there. Look at that. The original, tonal contrast, details, selective. These are all the steps that I use to sharpen an image. Inside details there, and you can do this with any of the steps. Tap on there. We've got 3 options. We can bin it because we didn't like it, it didn't work. We've got the paintbrush, which is I'm going to show you in a moment. And then you've got the adjust where you can go in and go, oh, that was a bit too much. I need to bring it back a bit. But the paintbrush is where we can go in and we can actually selectively apply it. So I'm going to zoom in, and by default, it actually shows you the before. So it hasn't applied it because I need to apply it. Okay, so I'm going to apply it with my finger. Now what I did there, down the bottom there, there's a little eye icon. So you can tap that on and off, toggle that on and off, and that lets you see where you're actually painting it, because it can be a bit difficult sometimes to see. Although we added so much that we can clearly see where we've added that. All right, so as I said, we want to just go down there and do the bottom bit. All right, so there is, so you can see where we've applied it. Okay, again, we can do the before and after. before, after. So it's just another way, and you can do this with digressing again. You can do this with any edits inside Snapseed. You can use this stacks and masking, as well as call it layers and masking. So you're masking in painting, finger painting, exactly where you want these things to happen. All right, and tick to accept it. There's our original. Oh, gosh, that's blurry, isn't it? When you first look at it, you think that's pretty detailed. It's quite good. It's got all the stuff there, but when you start going tonal contrast, details, selective, and then really crunching the details even more, and selecting exactly where we want, that is amazing, isn't it? So yeah, that's Snapseed. I just want to check, make sure there's nothing here that I missed. So one thing there, when I discussed the details with the structure and you go negative, you can blur the background, and it works similar to noise reduction. It's basically smoothing the details that are there. It smooths it. So it's not really noise reduction, because I'll cover that later in inside Adobe Lightroom app, because the noise reduction tool there, it does that, but it also tries to retain information as well. It tries to retain details. So it gets rid of the negative that we were trying to get rid of, the little blotchiness. So it'll get rid of those, but it'll still keep some of those details in there. Fantastic. Yes, we've covered it all. Beautiful. So that is Snapseed. That's my one of my go-to. Part of my editing process is I'll use three different apps if I want to really get as much detail as I can out of a photo or recover a photo. Yeah, so there we go. So that's Snapseed. Next, I will cover Lightroom in the next lesson. So thanks for joining me. So how did you find that? I hope you really got some value out of that. You may have been using Snapseed for quite some time, but not really truly understood how those sharpening tools and techniques worked inside the app there. Now there is, inside the course, I talk about also more advanced sharpening using Adobe Lightroom app. Some things that does is better than Snapseed. So more details on that blurry to tack sharp photos 4-step system is in the link below. And I hope you'll have a look at that. Go check that out. Thank you again for watching and listening, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.